The Handmaid's Tale is writing history with its dystopian approach to the world. However, the creators of the show have made some pretty obvious changes on the spot that gave a whole new approach to the story. The Serena switch. Serena is the arch-nemesis of June in the show. Despite being a negative character, she carries the show at some points, and fans have loved the portrayal of such a wicked character. However, a lot of people were intrigued about why Bruce has changed Serena completely for the show. In the book, it's pretty evident that Serena is quite old and couldn't even walk properly. Her hair is also grey and she has arthritis. We could imagine one such character to be a lead villain in a book, but in a show it would have looked pretty awkward. They needed a stronger enemy for Offred who would be intimidating and vengeful at the same time. Bruce said in an interview, "The element that was missing for me was the direct competition between the two women. With an older Serena, she wants something so badly that she felt like she should have had in the past, but she's past that point now. She's older and she's using this young woman to try to get that." But this was a little too simple for the series. Bruce has tried and complicated the characters on a very psychological level, so he made Serena young. "I felt that it was more active dynamic if Serena felt like this person was usurping her role," Bruce added, "not only as the reproductive object of the house, but gradually taking away the wifely duties and the intimate duties." Serena is very tall too, and she's portrayed as a very pretty but insecure woman in the show. That just changes the way we look at her character. Yvonne, the great actress playing Serena, told the director to let her try something out in one scene. It was the scene where she forces Elizabeth into the room and shouts, "Do you understand me?" She gets really close to her and we see a freaky side of Serena for the first time. The scene was not pre-planned at all, but Yvonne used her creative freedom and gave us chills all the way down the spine. Bruce says that you get an element of physical intimidation by having a younger negative character in the show. Also, Yvonne is really strong too. She uses that strength and agility in most scenes, which an older person might not have been able to do. Shooting scene. There's a particular scene in the book that Margaret has summed up in just one line. It's the scene where police aren't necessarily being nice with the protesters. Bruce could have either ignored this scene altogether or reduced it to a very short scene, but instead he said, "We turn that into a whole story because even the one sentence is so evocative." Bruce was impressed by the power that one sentence held, and while reading the sentence on the spot, he just changed it. What started off as one line in the book became an elaborate story of a clash between police and protestants, and it just intensifies the concept of dystopia that the show is trying to convey. Fans are just drooling over how good the show turned out to be because the book failed to give a closure that literature fans were looking for years. But now, with all these little tweaks in the show, they're also hoping that Bruce might finally give them the closure and satisfactory ending that they want. White characters. The show is a lot more colour inclusive, and it makes the viewers so happy that Bruce has included the people of colour by changing the legacy of the book. He said that in the book, it's an all-white world. What's the difference between making a TV show about racists and making a racist TV show where you don't hire any actors of colour? We love how Bruce has approached the matter of inclusivity and how he has added so many people of colour in the cast and created different roles for them. It's not just about telling the story at times, but also about representing a narrative, and Bruce has won it once again. People are on board with the inclusion of people of colour, and a lot of people are praising the creators for such a bold decision of changing the narrative of the book. But we're so glad that Margaret and Bruce made this decision so we could see so many talented people on our screen. Margaret reportedly was a little hesitant about changing a lot of things about the book, as she said, well, that would change everything. But we assume the change has turned out to be pretty fruitful because it's making people literally binge this show in one sitting. June's mother. June's mother carried certain parts of the book on her shoulders, but while filming the show, it occurred to Bruce how outdated her character is. She doesn't fit into their portrayal of the novel, and he decided to go on with the show without her. He said, "Something about her felt dated, and we ended up not including her in the first season." You should know that in the book, June's mother is an absolute feminist and even marched for women's rights in the 1960s. But she didn't fit into the story of the first season of the show. The pro-feminists were not happy at all with Margaret's portrayal of women in the book, so the the character of June's mother could have sparked up a feminist debate too. Though he did cast Cherry Jones as June's mother in the second season, but it just wasn't the same. People were expecting a lot more from a feminist icon than a simple and uncomplicated storyline. Bruce might have made this decision in a rush, but he really didn't think this through, and that is for sure. However, Cherry does have a sort of important role in the season, so yeah. Never mind. Mouth rings. People were particularly surprised about the mouth rings featured in the show. These rings tied the mouths of handmaids, and scenes involving these rings were absolutely heart-wrenching. The concept of these mouth rings was not in the book, and not even in the original script. Bruce said in an interview, "It was my idea to put it in the show." It might not sound that big of a difference, but these rings show how handmaids are forced in silence and are constantly told to keep their mouths shut. The rings on the show are simply a symbol of oppression that handmaids faced in the hands of rich families. This completely changes how some of the scenes are portrayed in the show. The mouth rings add a lot more intensity and an element of darkness to certain scenes. The interesting thing about these rings is that handmaids wear them voluntarily, and no, the rings weren't the idea of rich families. This is a kind of protest from the side of handmaids because they've already been silenced by all means. It doesn't mean they never take the rings off because they obviously gotta eat too, but then they wear the rings again just because they want it. Bruce has tried to highlight an important issue of control and connecting it with the rings. And now we can't really imagine the story of some handmaids without the mouth rings, as they've been such an important part of the handmaid's narrative. And yeah, Bruce came up with it just while shooting one day. We can almost feel the pain of these women, and that is what Bruce wanted to do. He wanted to create a hyper-realistic symbol that could tie the audience with the show. These mouth rings are particularly prominent in the third season, and some handmaids also wear a mask to hide them, which is even more sad. Favorite change. Bruce has a few tricks up his sleeve with which he has managed to turn a classic novel into something of an entertaining watch. But it didn't come without a cost, as he had to change, mix and match a whole lot of things from the novel. If we changed something, we did it thoughtfully and for a reason. We discussed the repercussions of each change with Margaret. It's been a very active conversation back and forth, and we've even been through the story a lot. We've picked it apart in the writer's room. Bruce also added that the scene of Hannah being born was completely different when a thought came to his mind that he saw an opportunity to explore something. He said that they intentionally added an empty maternity ward in the scene of falling birth rate. He knew that it would have a lot more impact on the people instead of just mentioning the falling birth rate on CNN. He added, "What does the falling birth rate look to us, not in a newspaper but on a day-to-day basis from June's perspective?" The addition of this maternity ward scene might not have added a lot to the story, but it strengthens the narrative of how bad the condition of fertility is, and by the looks of it, it's pretty bad. Queer representation. The show also takes a modern turn when we see queer representation in the show. It was not added in the book originally, and Margaret was not sure about adding queer characters to the show either. But fans were so glad that she did. It made the narrative of oppression stronger and showed us how women were not allowed to express themselves by any means. Though a lot of fans aren't happy at how tragic the stories of these queer characters end up becoming. The idea of being gender inclusive was also of Bruce, and according to him, it intensifies the story quite a lot. The place where the whole chaos goes down is Gilead, which isn't very diverse in the book. Bruce made a lot of last-minute tweaks and included people of different colours and genders. A lot of characters identify as members of the LGBTQ+ community, so this helps to create a feeling of connection with viewers who identify the same. Which of these changes inspires you the most in The Handmaid's Tale? Tell us in the comments section below. Thanks for watching our video.